what are the prospects of joint military exercises between Russia and the Philippines, as well as energy cooperation, particularly on nuclear energy?
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. There are many questions in your question, but I think that we have a good basis for our economic cooperation. First of all, I think that we are celebrating military cooperation, yes, military cooperation, energy cooperation, but I like to emphasize the project that we have in course, the same supply of 17 helicopters, Russian helicopters, for the needs of the national defense. And I think that the position of your government, especially the position of Secretary Lorenzana, confirms that the willing to extend our cooperation and to fulfill our contractual obligations after the signing of the contract. I think it's a very good example of our interaction. As for the energy cooperation, I can add only... I don't know whether we have mutual exercises because military exercises, but in any way, we are invited as the Filipino side to take part in some events in the Russian Federation, including so-called military exhibition and so-called army exercises in Russia, but with specific goals and with specific profiles. As for the energy cooperation, I can add that we are talking about the very promising area of our cooperation because first of all, we are open not only to have a trade with fuel and gas, but also to enhance our cooperation in some practical sectors, like the development of your nuclear energy for peaceful purposes. The State Atomic Energy Corporation, Rosatom, is ready to develop relations by providing energy solution, for example, by floating nuclear power plants and small modular reactor nuclear power plants. And the Philippines confirmed the readiness to conduct a feasibility study for the target installation of nuclear power facilities in the country. So it will be a very good example for our cooperation, and we are ready to continue our interaction in different fields: military technical cooperation, food supplies, and energy ones. Thank you.
Thank you very much. One last question from Fernando Frederico Emilio Gapus. He asks, will Russia be willing to agree to a ceasefire, and what would those conditions for a ceasefire be?
The condition for the ceasefire and the conditions of our negotiations are well known. You know that what can we say? All we have to do and to create a neutral and nuclear-free status for Ukraine. For us, it's very important. It's very important also the mandatory demilitarization and denazification of the Ukraine state. Recognition of Russia's sovereignty over Crimea and the sovereignty of the Donetsk and Lugansk People's Republic within the borders of the Donetsk and Lugansk regions. So the position of my country is very clear, but we should achieve through the negotiations. And I know that negotiations are in course. It is not so simple question how to reach the agreement. But I am sure and I hope that they could.
Does the ambassador or anyone on the panel have any expectations or forecasts regarding the price of oil as this conflict drags on? Mr. Ambassador?
Well, I can ask that the situation on the fuel market is very dynamic, and not due to this crisis, only maybe some consequences of this crisis, but also the consequences, from my point of view, are the unrealistic politics of the US and other Western countries. The prognostics are not so good. I've heard that it could be reached of also the imagination of the forecast is so high, $500 for barrel or $300 for barrel. It is not my task to make some prediction, but I think that our side, the Russian side, is doing everything to fulfill our agreements. For example, to fulfill our contractual obligations to supply gas and fuel to the whole Europe. As I know, 100% of Ukraine pipeline is functioning, works as normal, as usual. That is a real confirmation that we are a reliable partner, especially in this critical situation and especially in this energy field. So I think we should continue to cooperate with our partners, and we should do our best to calm the situation in the fuel market. But it doesn't depend only from our side, from the Russian side. The cooperation should be mutual. So I think the prediction till now it's rather difficult. But in any way, we are ready to provide everything that it depends on the Russian side and to fulfill our contractual obligations. Thank you.
I'll try. What I know is that the economic sanctions imposed on Russia have had no impact at all. Europe is in dire need of Russian oil by 40%. And of course, the Russians were wise enough to prepare for such economic sanctions, so they are all prepared. Remember, Russia has been under economic sanctions for 100 years. So they know these things. Now, with regard to the impact of such sanctions on fuel in the Philippines, I think George could answer that.
Yes, I think there's apart from the oil at this current time, of course, the oil prices are a commodity price worldwide, so it's affected a lot of people but the prices of other items and the charges have not been fully adjusted yet, and people are hoping, and the government is hoping that the prices would adjust back if there's an early news of a ceasefire. So they're trying to slow down the effects by giving subsidy to the workers, which they announced a few days ago. So it's not yet fully built into the economy. The price inflations actually massively, whereas President Biden has been trying to say that it's caused by the war, but actually the worldwide increases in prices have gone 8% in the US, 7.9%, and a very large percent in the rest of the world in commodities and others, is caused by the recovery of the world from the pandemic, but very much also by the printing of a lot of money by the US that is not matched by production. Say they print and they have a budget that they want to approve. They already approved, I think, $1.8 trillion, and a total they're talking about $4 trillion, which is a massive, massive amount of money. Remember, China's deposits in treasuries with the US after all these decades of working very hard is just 1.2 or 1.3 trillion. So they've basically printed enough money to flood the world and has increased all these asset prices. And the effect in the Philippines and elsewhere will be the rich will get richer because they have access to these funds, and the working class and people will have to be paying for this through inflation. So what's happening now, in fact, is this inflation due to non-production. As we know, the US is actually printed this money without increasing. A lot of people did not want to go back to work, so it went into asset prices, and that's affected the whole world. And so our people are going to have to pay for that as well. And the effect of this war is that it might institutionalize this, especially if the sanctions are further pushed around the world, because it looks like they might try to push sanctions against China as well or elsewhere, where the cheapest products and the most economic products are being, or the economic sources like oil, gas from Russia, or wheat, and other items from the rest of the world. If the world gets split up, then all the prices will go up. So what's happening is the whole world is paying for these conflicts that are, although there's a war in Ukraine, this worldwide inflation is very minimally caused by that. It's more caused by the sanctions of the US. So what we do have to do is to be able to balance our policies, including prepare for, as Russia has done, prepare at least on some basic productions here locally of spare parts, of materials, of maybe negotiating our oil. We should look at possibly buying oil from Russia or Iran, because we don't have a fight with these countries. Why are we the ones paying the price for? Why are our people paying the price for these conflicts that are not really very difficult? They're very complex politically and socially, but fundamentally, it's not very difficult to say, give a written guarantee that will take the threat away from the different parties in the world, for everybody, for Ukraine, for Russia, for everybody. No, they refuse to even agenda it, despite Russia and President Putin putting it on agenda for several months. So this is how we look at it. Right now, the consequences have not worked their way through the system. They don't know the prices of steel for houses, cement, gravel, everything has gone up. And it's going to work their way into the system unless it adjusts back fairly shortly. And then we'll have to look at the prices of food and all these materials as well.
Thank you, Mr. George Siy. Ambassador, we have a question from one of our educator friends. Can you tell us how the Russians manage the US sanctions?
Is one of the interesting things that we have. But I'd like to remind the words of Honorable Professor that we under the sanctions for, he said, 100 years. So we have a lot of experience by fighting the sanctions. As for the concrete actions, I can say that we had some kind of 2 or 3 attacks. First of all, it was attacks against our banking system. It was understandable that to create some confusion in the people minds it's very easy to have create some problem in the banking system. But I think that banking system was the first to come under sanction, but our banks dealt with this challenge. Now they are working literally around the clock to make payments and settlements between individual clients and to ensure the functioning of enterprises. The second wave of sanctions was designed to set off panic in the area of retail. According to estimates, over the past 3 weeks, additional demand for foods has expected 1 trillion rubles. However, our manufacturers, suppliers, transport and logistics companies did everything possible to avoid major shortages in retail chain. And I think that our business community and the teams of companies, banks and organizations are doing their best. And obviously, the attempts to organize some kind of economic blitzkrieg, I'm using this word well known, beautiful word from the Nazi terminology. But blitzkrieg, economic blitzkrieg against Russia to demoralize our society and to push us around have failed. And I think we will overcome these difficulties as well. The Russian economy will adapt to the new realities. We will strengthen our sovereignty in science and technology, allocate additional resources to supply agriculture, to the proceeding industry, infrastructure, and housing. And we continue to develop our foreign trade. It was also touched this argument. We have our reliable partners in ASEAN region. And I can say with satisfaction that the balanced policy of the ASEAN countries, maybe with the exclusion of Singapore, but the balanced policy of the whole this ASEAN community, we can't but welcome. And these foreign trade ties with our partners will have very good prospects. And we will also emphasize our trade with the dynamic international markets, including the Asian one. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Ambassador. Austin, I'd like to give a little input.
Yes, please, go ahead, sir.
Yes, first, I'd like to think very important in these situations is the role of media, and we want to thank our media friends, partners, and even those who are not in agreement for your very important role in disseminating different views and informations so people can judge based on their their backgrounds, no? So at least they can have the option of making these judgments. On this situation here, currently, with so many items, so many new areas that is weaponized, including informations, in fact, including education and clearing systems, which is different from the confiscation or freezing of freezing of bank assets. There are economic solutions that we should do. For instance, we can already now, and I think most of the world, and I don't know if the Philippines is already doing it, we should talk to our friends in the central bank. They have to diversify their holdings of reserve currencies, number one. Number two, because that is like the circulatory system of a country. If you cannot exchange foreign currencies, then you cannot trade. And then, the Philippine economy is such that we import a lot of items. So we need that foreign currency or the system of trading. So we need a clearing system aside from the SWIFT. We have to already be building alternative clearing systems. We have to be building alternative communication systems, as Russia had been doing. And we have to build alternative production capacities and logistics so that we can make the production and delivery of certain basic goods ourselves. In terms of the military, the military Department of Defense likes to talk about building up the military. I think it's clear that in terms of conventional warfare, it is of some use that we have these. But if we are talking about an extended or a all-out war, this isn't going to last very long. And the Philippines basically will be very easily conquered, but not necessarily occupied. Right, because the urban centers, it's not going to be that difficult because of our financial and equipment constraints. But the best solution sometimes is they say the people who survival is the best solution. So it's avoiding getting into this at all. And it has been warned to us by several very smart people around in history, as well as former US presidents, to not avoid getting into entanglements, to mandatory entanglements that wherein whether you agree with the reason or not, you are forced into a position, military activities against somebody. And this has caused already 2 world wars. And actually currently, except from a military sense, this is currently a world war. We should avoid getting into that kind of situation, keep our options open, and work smartly like the Singapore or Vietnam. They have conflicts with everybody, but they also have trade and good working relations with everybody. So we have to learn to compartmentalize. Thank you.
I just have a few remarks, Trixie.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, po. Go ahead.
In fact, as the war in Ukraine is raging, and as economic sanctions on Russia and Belarus continue to mount every day, there is actually now emerging a new financial system in the world. Recently, China and Russia are talking about using renminbi for Chinese purchase of Russian oil. And so is also Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is also considering the use of RMB in its trade with China. So if that is the trend now, and apart from the financial system, there's now emerging a new global system. I would like to know if His Excellency Ambassador Pavlov would like to say something about this.
Thank you. Very good consideration. But Professor, first of all, I'd like to thank you for your historical aspects and the genesis of these conflicts, because it's very important to understand that the promises made by the Western countries in their East policy, we can say, not to go eastward, not to have any inch, they unfortunately said one words, and the actions and the steps were another. I think for your very detailed explanation how from the beginning of the last century we are witnessing the evolution of the same approach of the Western countries toward my country. I think it should be known by everybody, because without the genesis, the history, we can't understand the present and the future. As for the remarks of the president, I just say that in any way, we would like to have an agreement, to reach an agreement, but legally binding agreement with Ukraine, with some specific issue I just mentioned. As for also, President mentioned that there is real information war against my country and many fake news. Unfortunately, the Filipino people are basing their consideration on the information that they've got from the Western publications. They mentioned Filipino newspapers, one of the sources of information, but in any way, also with the Filipino newspapers, a lot of publication from the Western news agencies and Western newspapers. As for the same attitude towards Russia with regards of the Asia stability, I think that it's a very important issue, and we should cooperate, as I've just said, with all our reliable partners in the region. In the Asia-Pacific region, I would like to emphasize this termination, this term.